Good afternoon. I'm State Representative Dave Severin of the 116th District. I represent 9 counties in South Central and Southeastern Illinois. I currently serve as a member of the House Mental Health and Addiction Committee. Growing up, my family ran Severin Nursing Home in Benton. It started out as a shelter care home when I was a little boy, and then we became a intermediate care ICF-DD facility. So we had residents that were DD population, around 65 residents that actually I worked with in high school. I worked directly with them. In fact, I shaved several of the residents before I went to school in the morning. And then I worked as an activity director, as a social service director in the nursing home. So I worked very closely with many of the residents. In fact, they became not only residents, but friends and family. I learned how to play the drums by one of the residents actually gave me lessons, and that's how I learned how to play the drums. My mother and father instilled a love for those less fortunate and those that are in need of health and quality of life services. We took it very seriously, and the residents that we served and their families trusted us, and they deserved the very best that we could give them. Unfortunately, for residents living in facilities that serve the developmentally disabled community in Illinois, we have seen news reports in the last year that have shocked and disgusted me. And before I go any further, I just want to interject this. So I want to say this about the staff at Choate that are doing a fantastic job. There are many there that have been working there for several years, some of them decades, that they take their job very seriously. They're doing a great job, and they're concerned about what's going on there also. So I don't want everyone to think that this is the whole facility as far as all of the staff. There are pockets of major concern that we're wanting to bring to attention today. But I want to say thank you to those staff that are there, some of them new staff, some of them very experienced, been there, some of them for decades, that are doing a fantastic job. So I want to say thank you to all of you. Thank you that are doing a good job. Thank you that have stepped forward and shared your concerns also. So after the ProPublica issued a sweeping story regarding abuse of residents living at Choate Mental Health and Developmental Center back in February of this year, I joined my colleagues for a Capitol News conference to call for joint committee hearings of the House and Senate Human Services and Human Services Appropriation Committee, along with the House Mental Health and Addiction Committee and the Senate's Behavioral and Mental Health Committee. Our goal in calling for that committee's hearing was to get administration officials, let me say that again, administration officials, DHS officials, and relevant staff members at Choate on the record to answer questions about the failure that lead to the outrageous reports of abuse, neglect, sexual assault, and outright torture of residents living in the care of the state. Throughout the session, House and Senate Republicans continued our calls for hearings. Unfortunately, our colleagues on the other side of the aisle completely ignored our demands. Their refusal to participate in an on-the-record hearing to get our questions answered was very disappointing, but considering how politics goes in Illinois, I wasn't surprised. However, after yesterday's news report by ProPublica that detailed horrible cases of abuse at other developmentally disabled state-run facilities, House and Senate Democrats and the officials at the Department of Human Services and the governor's staff must be held accountable for these failures. Our goal today is to call attention to the heinous and inexcusable abuses of these vulnerable citizens of Illinois. Again, citizens of Illinois, and to reiterate our call for a joint committee meeting of the House and Senate Human Services and Human Services Appropriation Committee, along with the House Mental Health and Addiction Committee. So you see that this includes several people in the House and the Senate, Republicans and Democrats, and the Senate Behavioral Mental Health Committee. So several people involved. We're demanding that a joint hearing be convened at the earliest possible time. Earliest possible doesn't mean 6 months, 6 weeks, 6 years. We're talking about ASAP. And in the private sector, ASAP means now. So we're demanding that joint hearing to be convened now so that we can get our questions and answered on the record for the media and the public to see and hear. In addition to our demand for an in-person public, transparent, and full joint committee hearing, we're also requesting the presence of any deputy governor or high-ranking member of the Pritzker administration that is charged with overseeing the Department of Human Services, the presence of Illinois Department of Human Services Director Grace B. Howe, and the present of Ho in the presence of all the appropriate and relevant high-level staff members of all state-run facilities that serve the developmentally disabled citizens of Illinois. That was a mouthful, but so there's a lot of people that should be involved in these decisions and this being addressed. So we must delay no longer. The families of the victims of these abuses, the taxpayers of the state of Illinois that provide the funding for the operation of these facilities deserve answers, and we deserve answers now. So again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to bring this important issue to the forefront. I appreciate Senator Bryant, I appreciate Representative Meyer, and all of you that are here today.